Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. I've got an amazing assortment of encounters to share with you. Some Dogman, some we'll just leave it up in the air for you guys to get excited about. But before we get into these encounters, I've got a couple links I'd like to share. The first link I'd like to share with you is Tromic's lead delivery system, home of the original 458 SOCOM, owned by Tony Ramore. He's a true American. He designed an AR upper to be attached to your existing AR lower and blast 458 instead of 223 or 556. He designed this for our troops in the Middle East to stop truck bombs. Now, straight across the board, guys, a 458 is going to stop a truck. It's going to stop or slow down the Dogman. Tromic's link is in the description below, and check out all of Tony's other amazing products. On to my links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below, as well as my second channel for creepypasta, fan fiction, and scary voice acting, stories that don't fit on this channel. And I started a GoFundMe page a while back to help raise some money for urban exploration, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting videos. I'd like to send a special thank you to Daniel for his generous donation last night. Now I've taken enough of your time, guys. Let's get on with these encounters. Shall we? Today's first encounter is a Dogman encounter. Brings us to Edie County, New Mexico, April of 1999. For some background information, I was raised in the deserts southeast of New Mexico, on 2 different ranches, so I'm very well versed in the flora and fauna of our beautiful state. I've even used to track semi-pro for hunters and trappers. I know the critters around this state. We've always lived on very remote ranches, 50 to 75 miles from the nearest actual town. My senior year of high school, I moved out on my own, being a part of the DECCA program to live closer to my job and school. Living about 12 miles from Artesia, New Mexico, where my school and job were, seemed like living right in town after all of that. I guess my story starts in April of '99. My boyfriend and I were rooming with a couple in their trailer house, just outside of Lakewood, New Mexico. We rented a room from them and sometimes watched their 2 kids as a part of the rental agreement. For a few weeks that April, a lot of the neighboring landowners had been complaining about wild dogs coming up from the river and harassing their dogs and scaring their livestock. We're about a mile from the Pecos River, and wild dogs have indeed been a problem in that area. One guy had even reported some structural damage to one of his chicken coops. The couple we lived with had 2 dogs, both of them medium-sized terrier mixes, and neither one of them were on the cowardly side. They had been very skittish lately about going outside at night, though. So much so that we had to make sure to let them out right at sunset and again at sunrise, because they wouldn't leave the trailer house otherwise at night. One Saturday night, about 11 at night, I know it was Saturday because I neither had school nor work. Near the end of the month, the 4 of us were sitting around watching TV and just basically talking about stuff, when the dogs, who were asleep in the master bedroom on the far east side of the house, started growling and barking at the window on the south wall of the bedroom. This was really unusual behavior for them, so we all got up to see what was going on. By the time we got there, the dogs had shifted their barking away from the window and seemed to be barking at the wall and along the wall, like they could smell something there, but it was moving. It was very strange, and when they came up to the end of the room, their barking just went crazy. Suddenly, from further down the wall, at the same time, about where the kitchen was, we all heard a loud thump and scuffling sound. It was powerful enough that we actually felt it, which, it being an 80 by 16 trailer house and all. The dogs, at this point, just completely lost it. They cried out in a high-pitched whine and just dove under the bed. We all ran out from the bedroom, down the hall, and into the kitchen to see what was going on. Peering out, the kitchen window was pointless. As it was late, there was cloud cover, and the moon wasn't even out. We heard the scuffling noise again from further down the house, and we went into the living room to see what was going on. We were all really confused at this point, and the next few moments seemed to happen in slow motion. Appearing in the living room window from the left and looking right in on us was this I don't know what. From the shoulders up was what I can only describe as a man dog. Its shoulders were quite human, with short, sleek hair. But it had the head of what looked to be a Rottweiler, and the teeth, oh my God, the teeth on this thing. All four of us screamed at about the same time, and I guess that scared it off because it disappeared. That image is forever seared into my mind. Also of note, this was a trailer house, so the bottom of that window is easily 6 feet off the ground, meaning this thing was 7 foot something. No matter how big of a dog or wolf it was, it could not have stood up and looked in on us like that. The guys, being guys, immediately grabbed their shotguns and headed out the door, even though I told them it was a bad idea. Super dark desert night, big unknown critter, no. I guess they went out there looking around for some 20 minutes before they came back inside and said they couldn't see anything. The light from the house shining on it and it being so close to the window were the only reasons we saw it in the first place. None of us really slept well that night. It was just too creepy. The next morning, I got up early and decided to go look around to see if there were any tracks to identify what this thing was. The grass and weeds that were right beside the house pretty much hid any tracks it made. Although I did find where it looked as if something had clawed the siding along the bottom of the house in a couple places, making the thump and scuffling sounds the night before. I then decided to follow the tracks the guys had made, and that was when I made the second very unnerving discovery. The guys made clear tracks in the sandy dirt, and whatever it was out there did as well, because it was pretty much circling them the entire time they were outside, at a distance of about 40 feet. The tracks were huge, canine, and switched back and forth from 4 tracks to 2, meaning it was walking bipedally for at least half the time and circling them. Just plain crazy. Today's first encounter is an unknown cryptid, but I've got a certain opinion on it, and I'm going to leave it up to you guys to tell me what you think. I've only mentioned this story to a select few in my adult life, as what I saw sounds crazy, but after 15 years I still remember it clear as day. When I was 10 years old, I lived in a home in North London with my parents. Opposite of our home was a field where I used to walk my dog in the morning. On this particular morning, I walked the dog by myself. It was a pretty safe neighborhood, and I was a couple of minutes from the house, so I was out walking the dog, who was a Cavalier King Charles, so he's usually pretty docile and friendly. We were walking through the field on a path that heads to the back of the field when suddenly my dog stopped in his tracks and just stared ahead of us. The fur on his back was raised and he started to growl. I looked in the direction his eyes were glaring and noticed about 15 meters away a tall, lanky-looking creature. It was approximately 6 feet tall and had long digits on its hand. Due to the distance, I couldn't really make out if they were fingers or claws. It was hunched forward, sort of like when a chimpanzee changes from standing to running on all fours. The strangest part, though, was it had long, spike-like appendages on its back. Within about 5 seconds of seeing it, it ran into the hedges ahead of it and it was gone. The speed and the way it ran was eerie. Safe to say, I turned around and headed straight home at a pretty fast pace. I never walked my dog alone in that field again. As I said, this was 15 years ago, so any details of its facial features are pretty lost in memory. Plus, the time that I saw it and the speed it darted into the hedges was pretty quick, so I didn't really have time to see any minor details. But all these years later, I still remember that day like it happened yesterday. Today's third encounter is another unidentified cryptid encounter. I went to a university in Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. It was a Catholic university, so I never expected to see anything odd there, ever of paranormal sort. This university had woods near it and a good amount to boot, and 2 cemeteries near it, one being close to the campus and one across the parking lot from the cafeteria. The one close to campus is important to the story as a nearby landmark. The second would be the road nearby that leads to the gate. This road is important to the second sighting. The first time I saw this was on Legion Road. There's a small fenced-in area with a small building. I saw something gray at first. It looked like a rock or a stump. Even though I was in a car, I could see it looked like something sitting on the ground with its back to me. If you had Gollum from Lord of the Rings sit on the ground with its legs pulled against his chest, this is what it looked like to me. The second event happened at night while on a ghost hunt the school had. We went outside and I remember it being very windy and cold. We left from the back entrance to the main building and walked to a spot of the landscape near the trellis. We talked about where we were going to go and started walking. The one cemetery mentioned before as a landmark is to the left of the spot across the road. I remember us going right from where we stood towards the road that led to the gate. It was in front of us. I saw this gray humanoid-looking creature run parallel to us and go down near the road before I lost sight of it. It was night, so I knew it was gray, but what shade, honestly, I'm not sure. I'd say slate gray. Size was about 4 feet tall. Perhaps it was hunched a little while walking. I'd have to estimate. I looked far and wide for anything similar to this event or anything similar to what it looked like on the internet. The only thing I could come up with was the rake story, and that's fictional. Today's fourth encounter is definitely one of my favorite encounters I've come across. Now, I narrate a lot of encounters and a lot of different cryptids, mostly Dogman, but this one I've had sitting on my desk for a while, and I don't know why I've been so greedy and not shared it with you guys sooner, but this is probably one of my favorite. From roughly 2000 to 2005, I lived in the south edge of Northern Virginia. This was a rural area with houses set far from each other, around surrounded fairly dense woods. There was a phenomenon that I came to call the woodwalkers. Due to insomnia, I had a bad tendency to stay up very late, sometimes all the way until dawn. Frequently, I'd leave the window partially open all night to let the cool breeze in. On some occasion late night, well, after midnight, I'd hear something loudly crashing through the woods behind the house. It always sounded like a large man staggering drunkenly through the woods. Always along the same path from the direction of the driveway down towards Bull Run River. The leaves would rustle very loudly as the large person was carelessly dragging their feet along the ground. Branches would be snapping as if this person was lurching blindly through the forest. I couldn't tell if it was one person or several people, but the passing through the woods always created an alarming amount of noise. I came to expect to hear the woodwalkers every 2 weeks or so. After a while, whenever I heard the noise of the woodwalkers, I would peer out the window, trying to discern who or what would be making all the noise at such a late hour. I never saw a thing, no outlines of figures, no glow from a flashlight. The real strange thing about this to me is that the apparent path they were traveling came from nowhere and went nowhere. They just stumbled through the woods, apparently tearing their own path through the wilderness, going deeper into the woods. It's also bizarre that they would be going crashing through the deep, dark woods at 2 or 3 at night when it's pitch black out without using a light source. It seems impossible to me that anyone could find their way through the woods in dark like that. On one particular occasion, I heard the woodwalkers behind the house. Then I heard a bunch of gunshots from directly behind the house. It sounded to me like a handgun, maybe a 9mm or a .38 special. The next morning, I wandered around the edge of the yard, searching for expanded brass, but didn't find anything. I found no traces or signs of anyone passing through the woods. In the days after the gunshots, I became increasingly determined to solve the strange mystery of the woodwalkers. I put a flashlight on a small dresser next to my door. I patiently waited night after night to hear the woodwalkers come staggering through the woods. Sure enough, one night I heard the familiar sound of something crashing eerily and slowly through the woods behind the house. I leapt up and rushed to gather the things I intended to carry outside with me as I went to confront whatever it was out there. I frantically pulled off my sweatpants and put on my jeans and searched for my keychain, then unlocked the lockbox where I kept my pistol, loaded ammunition into the pistol, and tucked it into my belt. I grabbed my flashlight and quietly descended into the basement and then out the back door into the backyard. It took me far too long to get outside. By the time I had cautiously strode out under the moonlight, I could hear the noisy movement of the woodwalkers receding into the distance. I walked slowly and stealthily out to the edge of the woods and pulled my pistol out of my belt. I crept soundlessly down the hill into the dark woods. I positioned myself defensively behind a large tree in case the woodwalkers carried firearms. I peered warily in the direction of the noise. My eyes strained to see whatever was out there, but I could discern nothing through the shadowy branches of the forest. After a while, I pointed my flashlight towards the direction of the noise and turned it on. My night vision was instantly ruined by the reflection of the light from the tangled mass of tree branches. I turned the light off and listened to the sound of the woodwalkers fade away. I went back inside in defeat. To this day, I wonder about the strange mystery of the woodwalkers. I'll never know who or what it was. Today's fifth and final, terrifying cryptid encounter. I encountered a cat-like humanoid being in the woods of northern Queensland, Australia. I was working security at a detention center out there. It was an absolute vast land there with wood stretching for miles and miles. It was about 3 a.m. when the encounter occurred. There was 4 security posts around a fence line which we had to man and make sure none of the detainees tried to escape. I was stationed at the 3rd post, which was situated behind the detention center. There were 7 Lebanese detainees escaped 3 months prior before me working there. It was around 3 a.m. and I was sitting at my post watching a kookaburra bird swoop down from the tall fence to the grass collecting bugs and lizards and such, when I heard a crash in the woods behind my post. This caused all the occupying kookaburra birds to wake up and call out. There were thousands of them out there in the northern Queensland. I quickly got up to run and see what the commotion was all about. This is when I saw the birds were hacking at. It was a cat-like humanoid, standing about 2 meters behind my post. It was making its way through the trees until it saw me standing there watching it. It stopped and put both of its hands up, which looked like long claws. It stood about 8 to 9 feet tall. I was trying to see what it looked like through the darkness, but all I could see was, feature-wise, was the shape of a cat-like face, like a tiger. Honestly, it looked ferocious, and it was built like it was made to do some serious damage, standing on 2 legs. It then walked backwards into the woods and vanished into the darkness of the woods. I was so glad that I had 40 feet of fence between me and this monstrosity. For the remainder of my time working there, I kept my back faced towards the detention center and my front face towards the woods. This encounter I will definitely take to the grave thinking about all of my life. What did I tell you guys? Definitely a bunch of creepy encounters. Dogman first encounter was, wow. I mean, you're in a trailer house that's a fairly large one at that, with some terrier mixes and 3 other people. And this thing is coming against your home and scratching and rubbing against it. And then to find out that it circled your friends while they went outside. Definitely terrifying. The second one, I have my opinion. For some reason, I keep thinking Chupacabra, but we're in London now, you know? I mean, do they have a Chupacabra there? I don't know. The third encounter, where the person is looking for answers. I'm pretty adamant about a crawler. A lot of people debate whether the rake is a true story or not. I think it's just a name that was added to a creature that existed far, far long ago. And I think they're crawlers. Something that just is not explained. And I know I'll get a lot of flack for that. The rake is real, this and that. But, you know, it's a name. It's a creepy pasta about a crawler or an unidentified cryptid. So maybe that's the name we'll give it. I don't know. The Woodwalkers in Virginia. Now, I've got a couple of subscribers that live in Virginia, and I know one, and you know who I'm talking about, brother, that's going to comment on this one. And hopefully he can shed some insight on this, because he lives in the very wooded region of West Virginia, and he's had some creepy encounters himself. And the last, the humanoid cat man. What the hell? That's just not right. Now, I have a Maine Coon cat, and when I make him mad, he gets real angry. And I don't like it when he's mad. So imagine having something like this get pissed. I mean, cats have their own demeanor. You know, Dogman's scary enough, but cats are very cunning and, oh, God, that's too much for me. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these encounters, and tomorrow I'm hopefully going to be putting out a subscriber menagerie of encounters, ranging from stick figures to cryptids to ghosts, just a bunch of subscriber stories submitted to me with guys, pictures taken from England from a dog man, directly from the person that saw it. Anyway, I bid you farewell.